Buongiorno studenti. Oggi rispondo ad una domanda. Today I'm going to answer a question that I've received many times. Is it ever appropriate to use voglio in Italian? Now, if you've been studying Italian for a while, or if you have watched my previous video on this topic, you probably know that you shouldn't use voglio in Italian when making requests. And instead, in these instances, you should use vorrei. Per esempio, voglio parlare italiano is better said as vorrei parlare italiano. And this is absolutely correct when you're making a request. But of course, there are other situations in which you might need to use the verb to want, in Italiano volere. Per esempio, you may want to express a desire, saying, I want to learn Italian. Or you may want to ask someone if they want something. For example, do you want a coffee? So students are at a loss here because they don't know if they should use vorrei in these instances or if it's okay to use voglio in these situations. But why is this so confusing? Because, as always, we need to get clear about the reason behind this distinction, the reason behind the difference between voglio and vorrei. And as always, I try to do my best to explain the why behind things. So while you understand this, you can immediately decide whether voglio is appropriate or not. So here it is. First of all, we need to get clear on the fact that we're talking about the same verb. We're using the same verb, which is verb volere. Volere. This is the Italian for to want. Then we have, when we want to say, you want to say I want, in Italian that is present tense of volere, and that is io voglio. So io voglio literally means I want. But the first problem comes here because in Italian, io voglio technically means I want, but it sounds very, very strong. In fact, it's often closer to I demand rather than I want. And then we have io vorrei. Io vorrei is technically the same verb, which is the verb volere, but it's conjugated in a different tense, which is the present conditional. So io voglio is in the present indicative. Instead, io vorrei is present conditional. Now, present conditional is the tense that we use to express desires, to make requests politely, and also to give advice politely. So io vorrei literally means I would want. Now, I know that you learned that io vorrei means I would like, but technically speaking, since this is still the verb volere, and vorrei is the conditional volere, this literally translates to I would want. So it makes the verb want nicer and more polite. In better English, it gets translated into I would like. So here's my simple rule to help you decide whether you need to use voglio or vorrei, whether you need to use present tense or conditional tense for volere. You need to use vorrei, which is the politeness tense, when you want something from someone else. If you don't use this when you're asking something to someone else, then you may come off as rude or aggressive. But you can use voglio, so you can use present tense of volere when you want something from yourself. Like if you're expressing a strong personal intention, a strong desire or decision, something that depends entirely on you, you can use voglio. Now let's have a look at some examples so that we can see these in action in real life. So situations where it's totally normal to use voglio are, for example, when you want to express your strong desire. Let's suppose you want to say, I want to learn Italian. Then you can say, voglio imparare l'italiano. I'm dropping the io because we usually do that. So, voglio imparare l'italiano it's a desire. It's your strong desire. It's something that you're requesting to yourself. So you can use voglio for that. Or if you want to express the strong desire of going to Italy, you can totally say voglio andare in Italia. Voglio andare in Italia. In all these sentences, you're talking about your goals and your intentions. So voglio is absolutely correct here because it communicates your strong will or desire to do that thing. But if your desire involves someone else, then you will need to switch to vorrei. So, for example, the same sentence, voglio imparare l'italiano, it's okay if you say that as a goal. But if you're telling someone else, I want to speak Italian, then it's better to say, I would like to speak Italian. Otherwise, you're going to sound like you're demanding to speak Italian with them. So if you want to say to someone else, I want to speak Italian because you want to practice it, then you should say, let's take a little bit more space. Vorrei parlare italiano. Vorrei parlare italiano. Or let's suppose you want to ask a question. Now in English, I think it's okay if you say, I want to ask a question. But in Italian, since that request requires the other person to give you an answer, then it's a good habit to use vorrei for that. Because again, it's not something that depends entirely on you. You are asking that to someone else. So how would you say, I want to ask a question in Italian? Vorrei fare una domanda. So we say, I would like to ask a question. I would want to make a question, literally. And by the way, let me know in the comments if you have ever been unsure whether to say voglio or vorrei in Italian in a specific situation. I always love to hear about your experience using the language, so let me know in the comments. Now, what I want you for today is to remember this simple distinction. Use voglio when you are expressing your strong intention or desire, and but about something that's your goal and involves only yourself. But use vorrei when you're asking someone else for something. And by the way, if you want to see more of this rule in action, then please check out the PDF that I prepared for this video. In the PDF, you will find a helpful recap of this difference in Italian, plus more examples like the ones that we are going through today. If you want to get the PDF, you can immediately download it. You can find the link in the description below this video, and as always, it's free. Now, something else that I want to share with you today, and it's important to focus. There's another situation where the verb volere in present tense is completely natural in Italian, and that is when you ask a question offering something to someone else. For example, it's very common for Italian people to say, vuoi un caffè? When offering a coffee to someone. So this literally means, do you want a coffee? Or for example, let's see this with formal you. Vuole una mano? Do you, formal, need a hand? So do you need help? As you can see here, we're using volere, present tense. Io voglio, tu vuoi, lui, lei vuole. So is this appropriate? Yes, it is totally appropriate. Totally appropriate to use volere present tense when asking a question, offering something to someone else. In these cases, in Italian, volere present tense, so vuoi, vuole, is totally polite and acceptable. Whereas maybe in English, you would probably say, would you like a coffee? Or, well, do you need a hand? Probably. But we say, do you want a coffee? Or do you want a hand? And that's totally normal. On the contrary, using conditional tense for these, so for example, vorresti un caffè or vorrebbe una mano, might sound a little bit too stiff in Italian. So vuoi, vuole, volere perfect present tense is perfectly fine when offering something to someone. So remember this, voglio for your intentions, vorrei for polite requests to others, and vuole for polite offers to others. And that's all for today. È tutto per oggi. I will see you in the next video. Ciao da Valentina.